If your parents told you that you were a workhorse, not an investment, while they funded your sister's every dream, would you show up to her wedding 10 years later? Would you walk into that opulent ballroom? Knowing they still see you as the family's biggest failure, the invitation arrived on a crisp autumn afternoon. Heavy cream cardstock, gold leaf embossing. My sister Megan's perfect. Looping script, announcing her marriage to a Justin Croft. 10 years of near-total silence. Broken by a demand for my presence. Standing in my corner office, overlooking the city from 30 stories up. I could still hear my father's voice from that final family dinner. The memory was as sharp as broken glass. I was 18, clutching my acceptance letter, my heart pounding with a hope that felt dangerous. I'd waited until dessert, thinking the sweetness of my mother's apple pie might soften the ground. I've been accepted to the engineering program, I'd said, my voice trembling just a little. I have a partial scholarship, but I'll need your help with the rest. My father, Kevin, didn't even look up from his plate. He carefully cut another piece of steak and chewed it slowly before speaking. Victoria, we've discussed this. We're not paying for your college, but you've been putting money into Megan's college fund since she was born. Megan has potential. My mother, Karen, said, her tone matter of fact, as if explaining a simple truth I was too stubborn to see. She's an investment. There's a difference. That's when my father finally met my eyes. His gaze cold and final. You're a workhorse. Victoria, you'll always find a way to work. Megan needs to be cultivated. It's not personal. It's just good business. You invest in the asset with the highest potential return. I held the wedding invitation in my hand, the thick paper cool against my skin. My husband, Nathan, walked into my office, his expression knowing. He placed a hand on my shoulder. So, are we going to this wedding? He asked. His voice calm. He never told me what to do. He only ever asked what the goal was. This isn't about revenge, I told him, turning to face him. Not the petty kind. Anyway, it's about closing a ledger. It's about walking back into their world. Not as the person they cast out, but as the person I became in spite of them. He smiled. A slow, supportive curve of his lips. Then let's go. But we do it on our terms. Always on our terms. The pattern of their cruelty had been woven into the fabric of my childhood. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Megan got ballet lessons and a private math tutor. I got a library card and a bus pass to my after-school job. When Megan wanted a car for her 16th birthday, a brand new convertible appeared in the driveway, tied with a giant red bow. When I needed a laptop for my advanced placement classes, my father told me my job at the diner should cover it. It was a systemic devaluing, a constant reinforcement of my place in the family hierarchy. I was the sturdy, reliable foundation, and Megan was the beautiful facade they showed to the world. The final break came a year after that disastrous dinner. I had worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, saving every dollar. I'd found a need-based scholarship that would cover almost everything. But it required one thing. I couldn't provide myself my parents' signature on the financial aid forms. I laid the papers on the kitchen table, my hands shaking. It's just a signature. Dad, it doesn't cost you anything. It costs us our reputation. My mother snapped. You're embarrassing us. Victoria, our neighbors see you coming home late at night, looking exhausted. They think you have a problem. My problem is that I'm trying to get an education, then try harder. My father said, his voice rising. Or accept your reality. If you can't make it on your own, maybe you're not meant to make it. I packed 2 suitcases that night. $16,000 in savings, and everything I owned. As I walked out the door, I left home with nothing but the echo of their dismissal. The first few years were a blur of cheap apartments and ramen noodles. I was utterly alone. It was in a dusty second-hand bookstore that I found a worn copy of Marcus Aurelius's Times, Meditations, **. It became my Bible. The Stoics taught me to separate what was in my control from what was not. I could not control my family's opinion of me. I could not control their cruelty or their neglect. But I could control my actions. I could control my work ethic. I could control the code I wrote. Line by perfect line. Their judgment became external noise. A storm raging somewhere far away that couldn't touch me. My world shrank to my laptop screen, my textbooks, and my own mind. It wasn't just survival, it was the forging of a fortress. My grueling climb was set against the backdrop of Megan's effortlessly curated life. Her social media was a highlight reel of beach vacations in the Caribbean, ski trips to Aspen, and designer handbags, all funded by the investment our parents had made. Every smiling photo felt like a confirmation of their choice, a public declaration that they had backed the right horse. The real measure of their indifference came when I was 21. I caught a nasty bout of pneumonia, my fever spiking to 103. My meager savings were wiped out by the hospital visit. Delirious and scared, I broke my own rule and called home. I just needed to hear a kind voice. Mom, I'm really sick. There was a pause. Victoria, are you calling to ask for money? Her voice was laced with suspicion, not concern. No. Your father always said you couldn't take care of yourself. She cut in, her tone dismissive. By the way, Megan just made the dean's list again. We're so proud. I hung up the phone and cried until I had nothing left. Later, I'd learned the dean's list was another of Megan's fabrications. But in that moment, the lie was as good as the truth. It was a weapon, and it hit its mark. But I didn't break. I got better. I landed my first freelance coding project, a complex logistics program for a small shipping company. I remember sitting alone in my tiny apartment, the check for $5,000 on my desk, feeling the first real spark of victory. But even then, a ghost whispered in my ear. A workhorse, not an investment. Asterisk, the imposter's shadow. The voice of my father followed me into every meeting, every success. It was still there when I met Nathan Hayes at a tech conference. He was a venture capitalist, sharp and brilliant. But he saw past the nervous woman in a borrowed blazer. He saw the code. He saw the mind that built it. Your logistics algorithm is revolutionary, he told me after my presentation. It's not just efficient, it's predictive. You're 10 years ahead of the market. He didn't just offer validation, he offered a partnership. Together, we founded Nexus Logistics. He brought the capital and the connections. I brought the architecture. We built an empire from a single, elegant piece of code. While the voice in my head slowly began to fade, we were in our home, a minimalist glass house perched on a hill overlooking the city. When we finally dissected the invitation, 10 years of calculated silence. And now this. Nathan pulled up Megan's LinkedIn profile on the large screen in our living room. It was aspirational. Director of Community Outreach at TerraVolt Energy. It read. An impressive title. A little too impressive. I've never heard of her, I said, pulling up my own contacts. I know the Chief Technology Officer at TerraVolt. Let me send a message. While I typed, Nathan was already digging deeper. TerraVolt Energy, he murmured, his fingers flying across the keyboard. That's interesting. They're in trouble. Deep trouble. He projected their stock performance onto the screen. It was a bloodbath. A steep, year-long decline into near bankruptcy. One of their renewable energy divisions is failing, and it's dragging the whole company down. They're desperately looking for a lifeline, an acquisition, a major partnership, something. The groom? Justin Croft, I said, reading the invitation again. What's his story? Nathan's search was immediate. Justin Croft, Vice President of Business Development. TerraVolt Energy. The very division that's circling the drain. His entire career is riding on landing a Hail Mary deal to save it. A cold, clear understanding began to dawn on me. They're looking for a partnership with an AI logistics firm. Nathan continued, his voice low. Someone to streamline their supply chain, cut their massive overhead, make them look viable to investors again. He paused, looking from the screen to me. Guess who's at the top of their list? Nexus Logistics. The pieces clicked into place with chilling precision. My sister, the Director of Community Outreach, and her disparate fiancé, the Vice President of a failing company that needed my company to survive. This wasn't an olive branch. It wasn't a family reunion. It was an ambush. They weren't inviting Victoria Serrano. The forgotten daughter. They were trying to lure the chief executive officer of Nexus Logistics into a trap, hoping to leverage a fake family connection to get a meeting they couldn't get through official channels. They saw me as a resource. A workhorse. They hadn't changed at all. Well, I said. A slow, cold smile spreading across my face. They want a meeting with the chief executive officer. Let's make sure they get one. The game had just changed. I wasn't a guest anymore. I was a predator walking into a trap she now controlled. I've been trying to get a meeting with your firm for weeks. He froze mid-sentence, his eyes darting from Nathan to me, the connection finally sparking in his brain. Wait a minute? He looked at me, his smile faltering. You're with him. Then you must be. His voice trailed off, a look of dawning horror on his face. He knew my name from industry reports, from magazine covers. He just never connected it to the long-lost loser sister his fiancée had told him about. Yes, I said, my voice calm and clear. I'm Victoria Serrano. The atmosphere around us shifted instantly. The whispers from nearby guests changed from mockery to confusion. Phones started to appear. People were discreetly Googling my name under the table. My parents' smiles tightened, their eyes wide with disbelief. What's going on? My mother hissed. That's when Justin Croft's face went completely white. You're... The Times Victoria Serrano, Chief Executive Officer of Nexus Logistics, the name of my $400 million company hung in the air. A weapon in itself. My father stared at me, as if he'd never seen me before. That's impossible. It's funny you should mention Teravolt, I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. Loud enough for Justin and my parents to hear clearly. Nexus Logistics was actually considering a potential partnership, was Justin repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Yes. Was. We can no longer consider it. Of course. We have a strict policy against partnering with firms that engage in blatant fraud, especially when that fraud is being perpetrated by one of their supposed directors. The world around my family imploded. Justin, his face, the color of ash, turned slowly to a completely stunned Megan. Director of Community Outreach, he whispered, his voice shaking with a mixture of fury and panic. That's your title. You told my family you were a director. Megan's carefully constructed princess facade shattered. Well, it's a new role, she stammered, her eyes darting to our parents for help. I looked directly at my mother, at my father, at the sister who had stood by and watched them discard me. I'm not you, I told them. I don't abandon family. But consider this the final payment on a debt that should have never existed. This is the last time. We turned and walked away. As the sounds of Megan's sobbing and my mother's hysterical shrieks faded behind us, Nathan leaned in close. There's one more thing you should know, he murmured, a glint in his eye.